What if Darth Plagueis went to Naboo instead of Maul? Let's start today's story on Coruscant during the events of the Phantom Menace. Palpatine and Plagueis, the two Dark Lords of the Sith, have just learned that the Republic is sending two Jedi Knights to Naboo to combat the Trade Federation invasion. This was expected and would have been of no concern, that is until they learn that it is Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice, as well as the prophesized Chosen One. Palpatine and Plagueis were fascinated with Anakin since his arrival on Coruscant and knew that this was the Force's way of acting back against Plagueis' midi-chlorian experiments. At first, Plagueis thought it would be best to kill Anakin whilst the boy was young and ensure that the prophecy was incorrect. But Palpatine thought otherwise. He explained to his master that if they could turn Anakin to the dark side, then he would become an incredible ally. Plagueis agreed. In the original timeline, Maul is sent to Naboo to deal with the Jedi as a sort of test for his abilities. But in this story, we are going to say that Plagueis decided to go himself, knowing the importance of capturing Anakin and also realizing the immense strength of Qui-Gon. When the Jedi fight through the hangar bay, the doors open to reveal a hooded Darth Plagueis the Wise. The Sith Lord ignites his crimson lightsaber and begins to fight the two Jedi. Plagueis would immediately recognize that the apprentice, Obi-Wan Kenobi, was no match for him. He presses his attacks forward, applying pressure on Obi-Wan whilst using the Force to keep Qui-Gon at bay. Obi-Wan gets too arrogant in his youth and overextends his attacks, allowing Plagueis to pierce his defenses and kill the young Jedi. Qui-Gon yells in defiance, but has to keep a level head. He continues to attack, green on red. The Jedi Master could easily recognize that this was the most powerful being that he had ever faced, and far outweighed the abilities of the Zabrak male he faced on Tatooine. Plagueis was impressed. He didn't feel threatened by Qui-Gon's strength, but could tell that the Master was extremely proficient in the Force. He could sense the balance within him, and knew he wasn't as rigid and dogmatic as the other Jedi. Plagueis remembered back to when he met Qui-Gon on Sereno decades earlier with his master Dooku. Perhaps in another lifetime, Qui-Gon would have made a fierce Sith apprentice. But that outcome wouldn't be today, as Plagueis disarms and kills Qui-Gon Jinn. The Sith Lord acts quickly, knowing that he doesn't have much time. He races back to the hangar bay, where he finds Anakin sitting in a starship. Calling out with the Force, he places Anakin unconscious before getting in his ship and leaving. He had done it. Plagueis would take Anakin back to the planet where his people reside, Moonalist. There, they would set up their base of operations. Palpatine and Plagueis would begin to transition Anakin to the dark side and begin his training. Initially, turning the boy dark was easy. He was 9 years old and had many attachments in his life, such as his mother to draw upon. He had grown up seriously disadvantaged as a slave and had endured the terrible parts of life. Learning of Qui-Gon's death hurt Anakin the most. He didn't know what to do with himself. They were able to brainwash the boy into believing that the Jedi were responsible for leaving his mother on Tatooine. With their constant pressure, his hatred for the Jedi, and most importantly the galaxy as a whole, increased. They began his training as a Sith Lord, teaching him the basics of the Force and how to wield it. The teachings of a Sith are far different to that of a Jedi. The Sith are ruthless and deadly, instilling acts of pain and suffering into their apprentices so that they have the power to draw upon. They dubbed Anakin Darth Vader, giving him an alias to use for any secret operations, just as Palpatine and Damask have under their names, Sidious and Plagueis. Anakin's powers grew very quickly. After only 3 years of training, the Sith Lords could see that Qui-Gon's assessment of the boy being the Chosen One was undoubtedly correct. He could do things at such a young age that even Maul struggled to do now. Everything came easy to him, almost like the teachings he was receiving were natural. They were his birthright. Plagueis' mindset would quickly shift. At first, he was worried about training the boy, but could now see without a doubt in his mind that Lord Vader was the future of the Sith. With him on their side, they could destroy the Jedi Order and rule forever. Plagueis was the main teacher for Anakin, as Palpatine spent most of his time fulfilling his duties as Supreme Chancellor. Their original plan was for Palpatine to elect Plagueis as co-chancellor, but after they found Anakin, they decided it would be best for Plagueis to remain in the shadows and spend his time with the young protege. Because of this, Anakin came to revere Plagueis as his true master, knowing that he was the most powerful Sith Lord in the galaxy. Anakin became very strong under his teachings. He was taught Form 5 alongside Form 7, giving him a wide basis to draw upon. They knew that Anakin would be involved in hundreds of lightsaber duels during his lifetime, so it was essential to be proficient with a blade. The Force came naturally to Anakin, so they spent most of their time dueling with the lightsaber and refining his skills. The one technique Anakin struggled to master was Force Lightning, but this was to be expected because 12-year-olds usually couldn't expel lightning from their fingertips. Plagueis spent lots of his time continuing his experiments upon the midichlorians, learning how to bend them to his will. He had already made significant leaps compared to any other Sith Lord in history. He was able to keep others from dying and de-age himself significantly. Even Palpatine had remarked that his master looked younger than when he met him several decades earlier. Plagueis knew that very soon he would crack the secrets to immortality. Palpatine and Plagueis would influence Sifo-Dyas to place the order for the clone army. However, Plagueis would now demand that he adds another section where Plagueis alone has access to the 150 contingency orders, knowing that because he wasn't Co-Chancellor now, he wouldn't have access to them personally. Sifo-Dyas didn't agree with this, and believed that only the Chancellor's office should have access to such weapons. Plagueis grew impatient and killed Sifo-Dyas, going to Kamino himself and placing the order under Sifo-Dyas' name, ensuring that when the time was right, he would be able to use any of the contingency orders. Anakin's training continued during this time. He developed his Force connection, working hard every day to unlock the secrets of Force Lightning. He had a strong desire to face the Jedi. Around this time, Plagueis' trust in his apprentice would begin to dwindle. He could sense a shift in Palpatine's demeanor and began to believe that he was hiding things from him. The humanoid believed that it was unfair that Plagueis was doing most of the training for Anakin and began to act distant. Because of this, Plagueis knew that it was best to keep his experiments a secret. He wouldn't inform Palpatine that he was only months away from learning how to master death. Plagueis had a mission for him and Anakin to conduct, one that each Sith Lord must embark upon. They travel to the planet Kurid, where Anakin will face his most daunting trial to date. He is tasked to defeat a whole race of primitive beings with nothing but a wooden bat and their Force powers. The sole purpose of these primitive humanoids was to act as a training exercise for the Sith Order. This was a ceremony that the Sith of the Bane lineage had included in Sith training for almost a millennia. The primitive beings had grown exponentially since their first encounter with the Sith Lords, and now they posed a much larger threat than when Plagueis was taken here as an apprentice. As they land, Anakin exits and the primitive beings rush from either direction. Plagueis watches in amazement. His prized possession, Anakin Skywalker, far exceeded his expectations. His speed, maneuverability, and aggression was unlike anything he'd ever seen. As the final herd approached Anakin, he closed his eyes and reached out with the Force. He was beaming with internal rage. He raises his hands as a gigantic storm of Sith lightning emerges from his fingertips, hitting all of the primitive beings at once and killing them instantly. His Force lightning was unlike any other conjured in history. Its glow didn't radiate a sapphire tint, but instead a stark red, demonstrating its power and strength. Compared to Sidious years ago, Anakin was on a whole other level. Anakin was now 16 years old and already one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. He was on the path to reach his full potential very soon, a task that would usually take Force users decades to achieve. He had one final task to complete before he could be seen as the true heir of the Sith Lords. He must defeat Darth Maul in combat. Ever since Anakin's training had begun, Maul had become very jealous and eager to demonstrate his talents to his masters. For the last 7 years, the Sith Lords had been sending Maul on small missions throughout the galaxy to cause disruptions to the Jedi. They already knew of Maul's existence. The duel would occur on Moonlist, where Anakin and Maul were given lightsabers and told that the duel would only end when one of them was dead. The fight began, but it would only last seconds. Maul used his agility to leap forward and begin to swing at Anakin, but the Sith apprentice reached out with the Force and catches Maul mid-air, turning his blade off with the Force and uses Sith lightning to blast the Dathomirian to the ground. He was screaming in pain, and Plagueis and Sidious began to smile. Anakin picks up Maul's blade and ignites it before decapitating the Zabrak. He had won without a drop of sweat. Anakin's ascendancy was complete. After seeing Anakin's abilities, Palpatine knew that it was time to kill Plagueis and revert back to the rule of two, an ideology that Plagueis was so keen on abandoning. He knew that when they took over the galaxy, Plagueis would demand that he is the main Sith Lord and hold most of the power, a notion that Palpatine was not okay with. He believed that there should only be two Sith Lords, a master to embody power and an apprentice to crave it. Palpatine would speak with Anakin over the course of months and slowly manipulate him into helping kill Plagueis, telling the young boy that Plagueis only wants the power for himself and won't share it when he gets it. Anakin would go along with this when he was with Palpatine, but would use the Force to cloud his true intentions. He tells Plagueis everything that Palpatine told him. Anakin always viewed Plagueis as his true master, not Palpatine. He never saw Palpatine growing up and stayed primarily with Plagueis. Plagueis would plan for Palpatine's attack, scolding at the fact that his apprentice believed he had the power to kill him. When Palpatine attacked, Plagueis would let him win, all part of his plan. Palpatine, with Anakin by his side, struck Palpatine down and used Force Lightning to seemingly kill him. But what Palpatine hadn't been privy to was the fact that Plagueis had now mastered death and become immortal. He could manipulate the midichlorians to his liking. His mastery allowed him to regenerate himself and stay on the brink of death. When Palpatine turned to dub Anakin the true apprentice of the Sith, Plagueis would rise back from the dead and the most powerful and ruthless being in the galaxy. Palpatine was absolutely horrified and knew that he had made a mistake. He misunderstood his master's power. Plagueis chops his arms and legs off before blasting with lightning. Plagueis taunts his apprentice and explains how he never fully embraced the powers of the dark side, but he had, and now he would live forever. Sidious was absolutely terrified. Plagueis explains how his time as an apprentice is over. Anakin Skywalker is the future of the Sith, and Sheev Palpatine was nothing but a pawn. Plagueis kills Palpatine and makes Anakin the true Sith apprentice in the galaxy. From here, the next stages of their grand plan would commence. The Separatists would invade the Republic and officially begin the Clone Wars. Darth Plagueis had control over the Separatists from the shadows, but it was Lord Vader who was the figurehead to the galaxy. When acting as Vader, Anakin would wear a mask to hide his identity, knowing that one day he would take the helmet off when they were in control of the galaxy. The Clone Wars were long and brutal, but they needed to be. In order for their Sith plan to work, the Clone Wars were designed to drive a wedge between the Republic and the Jedi, to paint the Jedi as nothing more than soldiers who were prolonging the conflict and not finishing it. And it worked. After years of fighting, there was no end in sight, and the people of the Republic began protesting for the Jedi to stop fighting and let diplomacy resume. Darth Vader was a tyrant. He was far more powerful than Count Dooku ever was during the Clone Wars, and was able to kill hundreds of Jedi during the conflict. Vader worked hard to win his battles, only losing the ones that Plagueis told him to forfeit. Under Anakin and Plagueis, the Separatists made more advances and were a far more devastating threat. They were able to conquer several planets using fear and terror to push systems under control. The Republic and Jedi were working tirelessly to defeat them, but it was becoming more and more difficult. As more and more protests began to show up on the HoloNet, blaming the Jedi for the war, Plagueis knew it was time. Order 66 was the final move in their grand plan and the entire reason that the clone army had been created. The two Sith Lords sneak onto Coruscant under the guise of Hago Damask, using the Force to hide their true intentions. Readying the troopers, Plagueis executes Order 66, and together, the Sith Lords go to the Jedi Temple and obliterate the Jedi Order. No one could stand the power of the Sith Lords. The Knights and Padawans fell to the clone troopers, but the Masters and Younglings were left for the Sith. Anakin stormed into the council chambers, where a class of younglings huddled together. Raising his hands, he shot red lightning that latched onto all of them simultaneously, killing them instantly. No one stood a chance. Anakin and Plagueis were dual Yoda together, but he stood no chance against the combined strength of the Sith Lords. No Jedi came close to stopping the conflict. It was a complete takeover. The Order is completely purged and the Senate is thrown into chaos. Anakin murders the Supreme Chancellor who replaced Palpatine, Bail Organa, and wipes out all of the upcoming rivals in the delegation of 2000. Hago Damas could bring the galaxy back under control and end the war. He dubs himself Interim Supreme Chancellor and defeats Darth Plagueis and Darth Vader, seemingly ending the war. With Hago Damas proving the deaths of the Sith Lord, the people of the galaxy trusted them, and Plagueis and Anakin could secure control over the Republic. This was all they needed to crown themselves Emperors of the Galaxy. Eventually, Plagueis would become so powerful and influential that he would abandon the Senate and call himself Emperor, with Anakin Skywalker by his side. No one had the power to combat this, so everyone had to accept it. Plagueis would teach Anakin the secrets of immortality so that they could rule forever together. Anakin had no desire to kill Plagueis, and even if he did, it would be impossible. The Sith had well and truly rid the galaxy of the Jedi and returned to Emperors of the Galaxy. Darth Plagueis and Darth Vader, though believed dead by the galaxy, would rule unchallenged forever. If you enjoyed today's video, you must watch What If Darth Vader Survived and What If Yoda Was on Coruscant during Order 66. Please check out our membership page where you can support the channel and watch our videos early. I hope you all enjoyed, and may the Force be with you.